Hi Rock Schoolers, it's Ian again. This time I'm going to do a tutorial on how to use Effects and Logic Pro. As part of your assignment brief, you're expected to be able to use effects both as inserts and as send effects. And these are two quite different things. You need 4 inserts in your project and 4 send effects to be able to pass. So at the moment you can see, if I select the tracks here in the arrange window, some of these tracks have got effects on. So this one here, which is a 12-string acoustic guitar sound, has got compression, chorus and channel EQ, and you can see this in the inspector area here. You can also see it in the mixer. So those are insert effects, and that means that those effects have been inserted directly into the signal chain of the desk. So the opening, if you think of it as a mixing desk channel, basically those signals, those effects have been inserted in between the signal coming from the microphone and the output going to the speaker, or the output going to the fader. So that's why it's called an insert. And sometimes this isn't always that easy to see or understand, and a better way of describing it is it's kind of like the way you use effect with a guitar. A lot of guitarists have their guitar, they plug the output of the guitar into the input of a stomp box, then the output of the stomp box into an amp. Now when I talk about stomp box, what I mean is something that might produce effects like a digital delay or a reverb or chorus effect. So that's an example of an insert where it's put directly into the signal chain. The send way of doing things is quite different. As you can see, this is quite straightforward. If I go to this track here and solo it, it's a car door slamming every now and then. I could just insert an effect on it. I don't know, maybe a pitch shifter. Move it down an octave so it sounds even lower in pitch than it did before. There you go, you can hear that the pitch has changed. Now whenever you're using insert effects, you always have a mix fader here, which will change how much of the effect you get mixed in with what's known as the dry signal. Whenever we talk about the dry signal, we mean the unaffected signal. Right, so that's an insert anyway. Another thing, I could maybe put some distortion on that as well. Some bit crusher distortion, and before we know it, we're going to change the sound of this car door quite distinctly. So they are insert effects. Very easy to open. No great difficulty there. Now what happens if I wanted to add the same effect to all 3 of these tracks? I could just open it up on the inserts on each one and copy it across each time. An easy way of doing that would be to look at all 3 tracks in the mixer, but each time you open an effects plugin in the insert, you're using more of the computer's processing power, and also you have to spend a bit of time. If you change the setting on one of them, you have to change the setting on the other just to kind of match it. There is a more intuitive way for doing this when it comes to sending the same effect from several tracks, and this goes back to how it used to be done in recording studios, when a lot of the time the people who owned the studios only had maybe 1 or 2 effects units, but they wanted to put that one effect on the whole mix, or on 3 or 4 tracks. So they couldn't just get one and plug one into each channel like we can do with these inserts. They actually would have to use sends. So what I'm going to do is highlight all 3 tracks, go to the send on one of them and create a bus 1. Now a bus is, you basically think of it as a wire or a line going out of the desk. It's the equivalent of when we have the auxiliary sends on a mixing desk. We send out a signal to that channel, that output channel, and that's what's known as a bus. It basically refers to a signal channel or a wire that you can send something down. And so that's quite a simplified way of describing it, but it's good enough for what we need to do. So here is the fader, and if I grab that and gradually push the mouse up, I'm sending more of the signal out. So where's that bus going? It's bus 1 on all 3 channels, but where's it going? It's going to this channel that was created the minute I selected a bus. That's auxiliary 1 channel, and as you can see, the input of this channel is bus 1. So anything that goes out of bus 1 goes into the input of this channel. So if we actually press play now, all of these signals are going to this bus. And you can hear that when I solo that auxiliary 1 track, you can hear all of the instruments. You can hear the car door as well if we just put it back to there. Yeah, so you can hear them all. Now, I said before, if I only had one effects unit, and let's say it's a reverb unit, then I'm going to select a reverb. I'll go for just a basic platinum verb, and I'll say that using a drop down that I want to have a small hall reverb on there. So because I put that reverb on the input of this auxiliary 1 channel, anything that's sent to that channel will get effects on it. So that means all 3 of these instruments, the percussion, the acoustic guitar and the car door slamming, are all now going to get reverb added to them. Now the good thing about this system is we can balance how much reverb is heard back by dropping this fader. If we drop it all the way to the bottom, no reverb. If I put it all the way to the top, loads of reverb. So this fader, if I change the name from auxiliary 1 to reverb, this fader is known as the wet channel, the one which is just complete reverb, 100% reverb affected signal, and these 3 here are the dry channels. So you can have a balance between wet and dry, or affected and unaffected. And of course, if I wanted loads more reverb on the car door slamming, I can just individually select that track and send loads more. So that one gets more reverb than the other 2. There you go, you can hear. And maybe if I want less on the acoustic, I can turn that one down, and then that's got less reverb on it. So it's quite intuitive. We can send different amounts to one effect unit, and that's a much more efficient way of creating effects. Just turn that down a bit. Yeah, that's a much more intuitive way of creating and using the same effect on several channels, especially when it comes to mixing multi-track drums. For instance, if you've got 8 tracks of drums and you want all those drums to sound like they've got the same reverb on them, so they sound like they were recorded in the same room, if you were to go across the whole process of opening the same reverb on each channel, that could be quite time consuming. So I could go over to here, put it there, and the quickest way you can recreate that is to copy. If I hold Alt and Apple key, I can grab it and let go, grab it and let go, and they'll all be the same, but they're using more of the computer's processing power, and they all require individual tweaking. Whereas if I just create a send from all the selected tracks, then open a reverb on the track where the send is going to, then I can have the same effect on loads of tracks instantly. So that's how you do send effects. I suppose the difference with them is, if I was going to use an analogy, insert effects are like getting some fish and chips where the salt and vinegar is already on them. Yeah, they already come with salt and vinegar on, whereas send effects are, you can use this fader to balance how much salt and vinegar you put on your fish and chips. Lots of salt and vinegar when it's at the top, and none when it's at the bottom, so you're much more in control of the balance. Now, as I said before, you need to have 4 send effects in your project for you to pass. Now that's obviously going to take a tiny bit more work than having 4 insert effects. As you can see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 just in these 3 tracks here, so it's very easy to have lots of insert effects, but not so easy to have lots of send effects. Anyway, that's the basics of it. Hopefully you've understood this and it's all going to be useful to you, and you can refer to this video anytime you need to on the Moodle to help you when it comes to setting up your send effects. Okay, thanks very much.